Good morning. Professor Tan Cho Chuan, NUS President, distinguished faculty and guests, parents, families and friends. To the class of 2015, well done. Heartiest congratulations on your graduation. I'm honored to share this important day with you at your commencement from what is recognized as one of the top business schools in the world. Your very distinguished panel of professors and program directors would no doubt have put you through your paces. Having gone through a similar program myself, I'm sure that you would also have learned not just from your lecturers, but also from one another. I must say, I was struck by the NUS Business School's tagline, leading from Asia. For indeed, graduating from this center of excellence are outstanding men and women who have and will make an impact in this part of the world or anywhere for that matter. It is a significant day, not only for you, your parents and families, but might I add, Singapore and even the world, as the potential of each and every one of you as leaders and change agents is being unleashed. It is made even more significant as our nation takes strides to move beyond its jubilee into the next lap of growth, where we will need your minds, your enterprise, and your energy. This morning, I'm cognizant that I'm speaking to graduates from wide-ranging backgrounds. Some of you perhaps already have experience and standing in the business community, while others are about to contribute to the economy. So I'm somewhat challenged on what I could share that would be meaningful and relevant across age and experience. I concluded the best that I can possibly offer will be my own life lessons and experience. A little background on myself. I grew up in a kampong called Bukit Arang in Hougang. Growing up in Bukit Arang in the 60s, we had neither running water nor electricity. I remember when pipe water was first brought in to a centralized water point shared by several families. Electricity was later introduced. I lived in an atap house with chickens running in the backyard, and beneath the house. Whenever my mother needed some eggs, I would crawl below the raised floors to collect them. Sanitation came in the form of an outdoor toilet. We had a choice of a toilet with a bucket system or a shack over a tiny stream or longkang that had guppies swimming in the water. Life was simple and Spartan, but I did not feel I lacked for anything. I went to a neighborhood school where one of my neighbors, Mr. Sim, was teaching. Indeed, all of the kids in the kampong went to the same school, and our parents would get instant reports on how we were doing and whether we were misbehaving. I did well enough at PSLE to go to a top choice school. I picked Victoria School as it was nearer to home. Like many of you, we had the fortune of being inspired by teachers when we were young. I still remember one teacher penning in my autograph book at my graduation to reach for the stars. I went on to NJC and managed to secure a Colombo Plan scholarship to study at Auckland University. This scholarship was important to me, as I would otherwise have to rely on my family to support me, and I did not want to add more burden on them. Although I was hardworking and did reasonably well in school, I did not really operate to my potential until I was at university. Perhaps I was a late developer, or it could also be the liberation of my mind from what was a more structured form of learning to one which encouraged the acquisition of a breadth of knowledge, learning for the sake of knowing rather than passing an exam. and the freedom to express what we have learned and apply them in a multitude of ways, and not always in a prescribed form. Living on my own in a foreign land also helped build independence and breed confidence. The many friends I made from different countries all contributed to my growth as a young man setting upon the world for the first time. I also dared to dream. Many of my New Zealand classmates could afford to take a year off to backpack across Europe or Australia, pulling beers at local pubs for their expenses. As a scholar, that would have been a remarkable request to make to PSC. Whilst I did not share the same fantasy of backpacking across Europe, I did harbor strong desires to work overseas. I also wrote to GIC in my final year, asking if they would consider hiring me when I finished my NS obligations. I received a nice note back thanking me for my interests, but noting that I was a scholar with PSC and promptly suggesting that I apply again after I had finished my 8-year bond. Providence intervened. The economic downturn in the mid-80s, triggered by a loss of cost competitiveness, was so bad that PSC had a hard time placing all its scholars in the civil service. We were thus allowed to apply to statutory boards and government-owned companies directly. As it turned out, I ended up, after many rounds of nerve-wracking interviews, starting service of my bond as an investment officer at GIC. Not long after I joined GIC, I was posted to San Francisco and subsequently to London. I fulfilled my dream of working overseas in a field that I had strong passions for. Whilst many scholars were fraught with worries about getting a job, there were quite a number of us who found the silver lining and took fate in our own hands. I was not alone in pursuing my dreams. After my bond, which was extended to 10 years, was served, I felt that I needed a new challenge. I had a good career at GIC, and the future looked bright. Yet, I felt there was a gap in my experience. I wanted to see what the world was like on the outside. Be careful what you wish for, as the adage goes. I did not regret my time with Prudential, a multinational financial giant that I joined after GIC. I often share that I learned how to invest prudently with GIC, and I learned how to manage monies as a fiduciary with Pru. I was also schooled in the workings of a successful multinational with their strong emphasis on process and talent management. Many of my colleagues at Pru went on to do great things, and indeed, one of my first bosses there, and someone I greatly admired, John, is today Chairman and CEO of Prudential. I have learned much from all my mentors and colleagues at GIC, Prudential, and also at Keppel. Many of you will similarly get a chance to learn from the best. Treasure it. Take advantage of that. Good organizations will always attract the best people. In your career choices, do not be too hung up over titles or pay. Look for organizations where you can learn and help you get better at what you do. I was appointed CFO at Keppel Corporation in January 2012, and in January 2014 became the CEO, by which time I had already spent more than a decade in the group. I co-founded Alpha Investment Partners, a real estate investment advisory firm in the Keppel Group, in 2002. Today, Alpha is an acknowledged leader in the real estate funds management business in Asia and manages funds with AUM of over 11.4 billion. Alpha was a startup. We had a blank sheet of paper to put a business plan together. This found support in Keppel, which itself had been blessed by leaders who were institutional entrepreneurs and astute risk takers. The spirit of embarking on a new venture and making it work despite all odds had also seen Keppel transform itself from the dockyard department of the Singapore Harbour Board 47 years ago to a successful multi-business conglomerate that it is today, with more than 43,000 employees in over 30 countries, an acknowledged global leader in the design and construction of offshore solutions, and a regional powerhouse in the property and infrastructure businesses. Taking over the baton at Keppel from a league of highly respected, tough men with bold vision was both a privilege and a huge responsibility. What do you do when you assume leadership of a great company? One that has grown and shown great resilience through the ups and downs, emerging much stronger after every crisis over the past 4 decades. It must be to make her an even better company, to attain greater success, and most of all, ensure that she will outlast all of us. I will find this task daunting, even insurmountable, if not for the many capable colleagues around me, as committed as I am to making Keppel a better and more successful global company. Keppel is well known for our can-do spirit and for our dare and tenacity. How else could we have built a global leadership role in the offshore and oil and gas industry? How else could we have carved a city out of barren salt pans in Tianjin Eco-City? What defines us and what shapes our actions is our set of core values which resonates with all Keppelites. Apart from a solid balance sheet, confidence from customers and investors, our core values like passion, integrity, customer focus, safety, and innovation will ultimately determine our longer-term success as a group. I count myself fortunate that at Keppel, the values I personally hold to be dear and important are aligned and attuned with the corporate's true north. This alignment in personal values with that of the organizations we work in is a powerful enabler for building resilience in the face of challenges and in driving sustainable, strong performance and results. My advice to you is to know what values resonate with you, then join an organization which embraces those same values. Be an active champion and contribute towards fostering these values in these organizations. The values will firmly anchor you and your team members to do the right things and not just doing things right. The next trait I would like to share is that of curiosity. Be curious, ask questions. When things work, understand why they do. Equally, when things do not work, ask why did they not. More importantly, learn how this can be applied to your situation, or even better, how they can be useful to others. Connecting these dots may lead you to discover better solutions for your customers. Do this lifelong, and I believe it will help you in your careers and in whatever you may choose to pursue. I have discovered that with humility, you can learn from anyone and from every situation. I have had many mentors in my life. The obvious ones were my supervisors and my seniors. I have also learned from many counterparties that I had the fortune to work with and learn from. Some were people I negotiated with across the table. It is easy to learn from people whom we respect, or perhaps even admire, bosses to whom we report to, and people who are older than us. My advice is to also be open to learning from people who may be younger than us, or even our junior colleagues, or an adversary in business. There's always something to be learned if one is curious enough. I lived in New York for a short period of time in my life, and whenever I had time, I would walk the city, especially during the weekends. This was in the mid-90s, and back then, New York was not as pristine as it is today. You would find many more homeless along the sidewalks. in my walks, I was always curious about how some of the homeless were more successful than others in getting passers-by to help them with their spare change. It was a study in human behavior and the choice of the right street corner. Just a few weeks ago, at the inauguration of our Keppel Innovation Convention, I shared that many of the disruptive and innovative business platforms we see today, like Uber and Netflix, did not involve any great inventions in terms of science and technology. In fact, often they arose out of questioning for a better way of doing things or discovering and understanding changes in customers' habits. As Dick Costolo, who recently announced that he will step down as CEO of Twitter, shared, I quote, "Everyone thinks one way and you the other. If the distance is large and you are right, the opportunity is enormous," unquote. I also shared at the convention an article I read recently in the Straits Times. Some of you might have read the story. It's entitled, "I, Not Robot, I'm Smarter." This was written by a gentleman named Charlie Ang Hua Leong, who was a former trade diplomat and business futurist. He was also the founding president of the Innovators Institute based in Singapore. Mr. Ang shared how he was giving advice to his 6- and 7-year-old daughters on what they should be looking out for when they join the workforce in 2030. One particular paragraph in his story caught my eye. It was subtitled, "Only the Innovators Survive." Let me quote, "Many of the jobs today will not exist in the 2030s and vice versa. Many of the jobs in the 2030s are not yet invented. Massive values will be created and captured by innovators, while operators will be facing a losing battle against their digital competition. There will be a plethora of powerful and cheap technologies waiting for innovators to pick up to solve real-world problems," unquote. Indeed, simple ideas can grow into commercial hits in response to real unmet needs. Never underestimate a simple idea that questions the status quo. Sometimes, you might be taken out of your comfort zone when you're challenged to think or see things from a different angle. In Keppel, we embrace innovations in our solution offerings, processes, and business models. It has propelled us to leadership in our businesses. Even in successful businesses, especially ones where we have achieved leadership positions, we have to constantly think about how we can disrupt ourselves. We can be assured that our competitors will be looking to eat our lunch if we are less than curious or innovative in how we serve our customers. In today's world, quite often, the disruptor might well be someone currently outside your industry or who may not even register on your radar screen. Keppel Offshore Marine's near-market, near-customer strategy, with our global network of 20 yards, has built for us an unrivaled competitive position in the offshore and marine space. Our proprietary B-class jackup rig was developed with a view to change the old practices in the industry and is today the most used offshore rig in the world. At present, we are designing and patenting rigs to drill in the Arctic, and alongside with that, a suite of solutions that will provide logistical support for safe oil exploration and production in an extremely harsh and challenging environment. Armed with a creative and an innovative mindset and a can-do spirit, I am confident we will retain our leadership position in the offshore and marine industry for many more years to come. Some of you may be familiar with Keppel Bay. It was innovatively transformed from the historic Keppel shipyard into a world-class waterfront live, work, play precinct. Keppel knew that the days of its downtown yards were numbered. We had little choice but to move our shipyard out of Telok Blangah to Jurong. But this adversity was turned into advantage with a bold vision and strategy to extract value from the site. Along the way, the management team then had to be creative and ingenious to overcome the many daunting challenges involving various stakeholders, from details such as height restrictions to finding no precedents for such conversion of land use. But they never relented on the vision then, 30 years ago, to have an iconic world-class waterfront development in line with growing Singapore into a global city. Today, we see reflections at Keppel Bay with its dramatic curved towers and its highly sought-after waterfront residences. The bold move has and continues to generate value for Keppel into the future. Next, I urge all of you to embrace change. As they say, change is a constant. Accept that rather than fight it. Indeed, learn to take risks. Get out of your comfort zones and constantly reinvent yourself to make sure you remain relevant. Only your core values should remain unchanged. This will serve to anchor you and make sure you make the right calls, even as the world changes around you. By now, you will have realized that the millennials are cool about not having to own things. For example, the ladies, for variety, can now choose to rent Prada or Louis Vuitton handbag or a Burberry coat. We take a look at Uber again. It was started by a few entrepreneurs frustrated with the difficulty of getting a taxi and driven by a dream of a society where people do not need to own cars. Today, they have a market capitalization that far exceeds any taxi company, and they do not own any taxis. Likewise, Airbnb is a hospitality company that does not own hotels or service apartments, and Facebook is a huge media company that does not produce content. Our world is constantly changing. Embrace the opportunity to thinking unboxed. New approaches to doing business, new processes, new forms of collaborations. Even in crisis, new breakthroughs follows. Not just new businesses, but whole new industries, leading to higher levels of growth and productivity, as well as expanded opportunity for everyone and new ways to improve life for people everywhere. Our agility to change can determine our survival, our progress. I'd like to close by sharing with you the following words from Singapore founding Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. I quote, "Each generation has its own problems. Our generation has either to add greater strength or security to our society or watch all that we and our predecessors have built be lost or ruined." He concluded, "We cannot afford not to succeed." Close. I wish you all great success. I hope you achieve all of your dreams. Be true to yourself. Be brave and take risks. Be creative and innovative. Be curious, be humble, and learn. Get a mentor. Make lots of friends. And above all, enjoy yourselves as you pursue your dreams. Have a great career or whatever life's work you have ahead of you, one that you'll be proud of, as will those who are closest and dearest to you. And finally, I know you have many choices, but at some stage in your careers, I hope you will choose to contribute to locally grown global companies like Keppel, who are born and bred in Singapore, but yet dare to dream and compete in the world stage. We are all indeed leading from Asia. I look forward to hearing or reading about your remarkable achievements. Thank you.